I want people to take this as an opportunity to, you're stuck in a situation, you're at home with all your loved ones. So take the opportunity to find out what it is exactly, how you can heal together. And ultimately our end result is getting these facilities up and running.
Any of my brothers that are out there, struggling with their deployment or, life in general, I tell them that, hey, to stay strong and to keep holding on and to understand, you're here for a reason and that, your life and what you're doing does have purpose. Hey everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Guards Down. I have with me today Tanya Scott. Tanya, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I am doing well, staying COVID free and enjoyed the weekend. We're just coming off the 4th of July weekend with the family, so we're getting back into the swing of things.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You had a good weekend?
I did. We went up to the mountains just to get away. The kids didn't have a spring break, and it was like the culmination of our summer together. So we went to the mountains, we hung out, went rafting, and also got to see Yogi Bear because he smelled all the good food that we had. So
That's awesome. Those are memories. Those are definitely memories.
indeed. Well, let's get started. We're talking about how different cultures view, treat, and overcome trauma and grief. And so I just want you to, first tell us who you are and tell us what your experience has been.
All right, my name is Tanya Scott, and I am the founder of Together for the Good Incorporated. And what we are is a veteran certified 501c3 focusing on the whole dynamic as a family and what healing looks like, not only with a veteran in our first responder community, but also healing with the family as a whole. And the reason why we focus directly on that is we have 48,000 plus nonprofit organizations across the nation, and we have them fighting for our veterans or our officers, our first responder community. But we don't necessarily directly have organizations set up to focus on the family. So we found it very, very important that that's the direction that this organization was going to go, is focusing on the family and healing together.
Got you. And that is awesome. How long tell us a little more about Together for the Good. How long has it been around? Um,
So this is like a 15-year journey. This isn't something that just popped up and happened overnight. We've been in business for 3 years, but this is a journey, and this is a journey that I had to take as being a military spouse to understand exactly what the role and the pain and the suffering that goes with it, to a service member that has been injured. So my husband sustained a traumatic brain injury that went undiagnosed, and it went undiagnosed for 12 years. And because of that, he's 47. He has early onset dementia. And it wasn't a guarantee that he was never going to get it, but just how he went with no treatment just sped up the process of what's wrong with him. So he has a traumatic brain injury, PTSD, and then early onset dementia. So he struggles daily. And ultimately that's how the focus of the organization happened, was something needed to be done because we didn't have the resources. Nobody told me about the any family help or anything like that back in 2009, 2008 when we started fighting this. Um, and it's something that's definitely needed. It's definitely needed.
Indeed. Okay, well, with this, this episode, and well, before we even get started, I do want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for the support for our service members and what you're doing and your walk on this journey and how it got to you where you are now. And so like that definitely means a lot to me as well as, other folks out there. So, I appreciate you. I see
Yeah.
the stethoscope in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where my beginning started. I started out as a nurse, and I was contracted through the VA as a nurse for several years until 2016. My nursing career ended. I was attacked by a brain injury patient, and it left me pretty tore up because that was my identity, and I struggled with it. I still struggle with it sometimes. That it was taken from me, and it wasn't like, hey, I decided I'm going to give up nursing. No, it was something that was my passion. I lived it every day, and then to be, attacked and hurt, it was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
So instead of sitting down and crying about the pain and the injuries, I decided, you know what, I'm going to focus on the organization. I've been blessed to work and understand like what direction I needed to go on, from colleagues and for just working at the VA, that it gave me the knowledge and the understanding of where we had to go.
Got you. Well, with that, so you've had to deal with your own trauma and grief, as well as the indirect or the collateral damage of someone else dealing with PTSD and complicated grief. And so, I definitely want to get into those two and talk about it, if you want to share. But I want to start with, your background. Did your family, your parents, the people around you, did they teach you how to deal with trauma and grief growing up?
Um, no. I grew up with, if things happen behind closed doors, you keep them behind closed doors. You don't speak openly about it. And I think that's where, as the years go on, and as you look back, you sit there and wonder, like, why did I keep it to myself for so long, or why did I do this, or why did I do that? But growing up, it was, you don't talk about it, and there's significant trauma that happened, when we were younger, and it was a betrayal on the family dynamic. It was a betrayal on just a family in general, that you sweep it under the rug and you don't speak about it, and we are now dealing with the repercussions of what that looks like. So it's a sad situation. I wish, growing up, we had a better understanding of, this is how you deal with grief, this is how you deal with trauma, and this is, like, I feel like we were given a huge disservice, because now here we are in our 30s and 40s, and we have to deal with things from our childhood, and instead of moving forward, like, we're stuck in this moment of, now we have to heal from wounds that should have been healed already.
Got you. And so when you say stuck in the moment, meaning that, well, tell us what you mean when you say stuck in the moment.
So you're stuck in that trauma. You're stuck in that place. I do have PTSD, and I speak openly on it. I was molested till I was 11 years old, and I felt betrayed by my family. I felt betrayed by my parents, and It was sweeping it under the rug. Like nobody took accountability to prosecute the family members that were doing this. So yeah, you're stuck in that moment. You're reliving it over and over again, because you never had the opportunity to heal yourself. So I do have flashbacks. I do have triggers, certain smells. I deal with all of that, and it takes me back to that place. And it's because I never dealt with it as a child, and grew up thinking that it was all right to talk about it. No, I had to keep it inside until I hit that wall at 35 years old. I hit that wall of, holy cow, I have to deal with this now, because if I don't deal with this, I'm not going to be able to move forward myself. So I'm out there explaining and being a hard advocate for mental health and suicide when in the background I'm suffering myself. And I think that was the hardest pill to swallow, that I finally had to realize I have to get help myself.
Man, you've had a you've had a tough life, and I
I've
respect
I've
you.
I definitely have. I've suffered at the hands of abuse numerous times, but at the end of the day, I still love my family. I still, you know, there's a lot of dark secrets that are coming out right now, and it's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that, we as a society feel that, we have to protect our children from our secrets from our past, and then, when it gets to a point where it has to come out, you're left devastated. You're left devastated in that moment, like you're being victimized all over again.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not fair.
So when you talk about dark secrets coming out, or even just speaking on, the what happened, I know for some it's kind of like reliving that situation all over when you speak on it. Can you talk about, before we really get into it, talk about like the different ways a person can express what happened, whether they want to talk about it directly or indirectly, because I know there are some people that may not feel comfortable enough yet to open and share. And so, I just wanted to know, do you have to open up and talk about it, or can you deal with it in other ways?
I mean, everybody heals differently. Everybody is going to whatever works specifically for that person. Not one person, not one culture, not one dynamic. We're not going to heal the same way. What healing looks like to me is when I express it, when I talk openly about it. And the reason for that is because then now this is my truth, this is my reality, and I can handle my reality. I can handle, how I choose to move forward. So when you speak on it, you speak it into existence. You admit that it's happened. You admit that you have gone through it, and now it's time to find a way to heal through it. And there's always options. You don't necessarily have to talk about it. You can write it in a journal. Writing it on paper still makes it real. Writing it on paper frees, what I feel is the burden that you're holding on to. When you write it down, and it goes on paper, it's still truth, it's still real. But how you start healing from that is what's best for you. Like I said, not one person's going to heal the same. My approach is I have to face it head on, because I didn't face it when I was younger. So now I have to.
Gotcha. Okay, so just from your response, would you say that different cultures cope with trauma and grief differently?
I do. I do. I absolutely do. Um, I, um, a great example, my, really good teammate and really good friend of mine, David Kendrick, he is fighting for the organization on, what it looks like to fight in, the African American community, because he was the first generation Army that went to war, and he received a Purple Heart. And when he came back home, they didn't know how to handle it. They didn't know what to do, and and me being a woman of God, I completely understand where they come from, where they say, well, pray on it, God will heal you. But then it doesn't happen. And when it doesn't happen, you feel like God betrayed you. So then the moral side of it comes into play when you're starting to doubt God because God isn't healing you. But the reality is there's such amazing trained professionals out there that can guide you and that can help you through it. So we're bringing more awareness to other cultures that say, hey, we might not heal the same way, we might not completely understand the same way, but at least we can say, here's an option, this can help you. And it's just all about bringing more awareness. And yeah, it, cultures heal differently. What they believe is healing.
Indeed, indeed. And I like that you said that. And the other part was, regardless of your background, being able to show that support, that you're not alone, uh, even though, people do heal differently, but just knowing that you got folks behind your back definitely does make a difference. When it came to healing, you dealt with childhood molestation. You dealt with, your whole passion, your nursing career ending because of an attack. And then you dealt with the collateral damage of your husband having a TBI and PTSD,
Yeah.
essentially. How did you heal through all that? Did you have to do one trauma at a time, or was it a collective?
Um, I don't think I'm quite into the healing process. And the reason why I say that is last year, April 1st, April 1st, everyone thought it was a joke. I collapsed. I stopped walking, I stopped talking. And I was in the ICU 18 days. And yeah, they did a spinal tap and found out I have MS. Um, so it's like a trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. And it's like now that you have like all of it in one collective ball of what the heck just happened. Because this is like 2016 to 2019 that all this happened, minus the molestation as a child. But from 2016 to 2019, it was trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. And I never had that ability to heal. Like right now, in this moment, I'm in the grieving process. And I speak openly on it because I literally have to grieve my old self and who I used to be in order for me to start moving forward. And I think we miss that. We miss that part. That when you're handed a huge diagnosis or a huge what do I want to call it? A shit ball. I'll call it that. I'll call it a ball of shit. Here you go. When you're handed this, you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Do I pick it out piece by piece, or do I collectively look at it and be like, all right, how am I going to move past this? Because you start pulling off the layers, you're exposing wounds. So you're gonna start exposing all the wounds that hurt you. Um, and personally, me, I don't know. I haven't began that process of what does healing look for me. I'm in that moment of yeah, I'm still in that moment of denial, and I speak openly on it.
Gotcha. So I like how you spoke on the grieving process, to say that you were grieving your old self, to go through all of these different things, and how you say, the shit balls of life. Um, you have to go through this process of grieving. When you heal, I often wonder the question of, is it like a injury, a physical injury, where, once it's healed, you no longer feel the pain or anything like that. But I'm more so finding that healing in itself is a forever ending process. It's a
Yeah.
journey. And that, you have to take steps, and it's one day at a time. Sometimes it's just waking up and just being thankful you can breathe, when your day's that bad, until you can get a footing and a holding to go a little further.
Yep.
And I think, your story really speaks to like the testament of it. And then to just get hit with MS, from falling out. Um, I know that was the devastation. So when you talk about grieving your old self, complicated grief isn't just about loss of a person you love, in the physical form. It's some spiritual and emotional things with that.
Yeah.
So can you talk about some of the healthy and unhealthy ways that you learned to cope, with all three? So all four: the molestation, the nursing, the collateral damage, and the diagnosis.
I think if anything, my faith in God has very, very, very much became a strong point in my life. Um, and I can't do it without him. And I praise him every day. Because the reality is I tried to take my life back in December because it just got to be too much. I couldn't deal with the pain every day. I couldn't deal with the losing my eyesight. I couldn't deal with, am I going to have a blackout moment? Am I going to have a seizure on the road? Am I going to end up hurting somebody? Like that became my everyday in my mind, it way of living. And it froze me in that moment. It froze me because I didn't want to get out of bed because I was scared. Because yeah, I didn't know who I was and who I was going to become. So I stopped. I stopped reading the Bible. I stopped praying. I was mad. I was very, very mad. I was angry. Um, and I still have my moments when I'm angry. Because being a nurse, you know what the end result is. You know the neurological, the end result and what it's going to look like. So it became harder for me to understand. And how I'm coping with it, how I'm healing is probably not the best case scenario right now. And that's just pushing it down to keep moving forward. Because if I sit and dwell on it, I become angry and I become very bitter. And then the why me starts setting in. And that's not a place where I want to be, because I was in that place when I was in the hospital, where I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, and you take for granted everything that you're able to do, and in an instant it's gone. So that it's how do you start accepting it? I don't know. I haven't gotten to that point yet. um like I said, I'm still in the denial phase. We're a year in, and I'm still in that phase. And
Yeah.
it's okay. I have a very, very good support team. I got a good support system that, my sister, my younger sister, she's a trauma therapist. She just graduated from the seminary with a double master's in psychology. And I lean on her. I lean into her heavily with trying to understand what I'm going through. Because one day I can accept it and I'm good. And then 2 days later, I'm laying in bed depressed because I don't know what the heck is going on. So it's that roller coaster. And I'm still there. I'm still in the beginning, and it's going to take some time. Um, but with the molestation and stuff, I think it's more of I just came to terms with it. When the gentleman passed away, I just simply wrote on a balloon, "I forgive you," because I had to let it go. And I couldn't let it consume my life. And by no means is that healing for anybody through that goes through sexual trauma. But when you go through it and you understand that it is not your fault, that you did nothing wrong, it's the other individual, it makes things a little bit easier to understand. It still does not fix the betrayal of everybody that was involved. It will never fix that. But you just come to terms with it, and I don't know. When I speak on it, it's still very, very real. It's still there in the moment, but I learned to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the signs that you're dealing with complicated grief and PTSD, the feelings, the thoughts, the actions, so that people out there can identify and know.
Um, I go through anger. I go through anger. And it could be for no particular reason. And that is one of the side effects of MS. Um, and if people don't understand what MS is a neurological disorder. Literally, my immune system is attacking itself. I have lesions on my brain. I have lesions all the way down my spine. And it's just, I fall. And at 35, you don't expect to go through this kind of stuff. But I do. I have anger outbursts. I have severe depression. I do have suicidal ideation. I do sometimes feel that I don't want to fight this. But like I said, my faith is what keeps me going, and knowing that I can be a testament to somebody else that is either about to go through this or has gone through this, and is just needing that support. I think that's what keeps me driving every single day, because I know there's more out there that needs that voice.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I I definitely understand the anger outbursts. Uh, there's different levels to depression, and sometimes I know with that it feels like there's no end to the sadness,
Yeah.
and then the suicidal thoughts. I've definitely been there, with you a number of times. So I definitely get, how you feel with that. With that being said, what are some ways that you can help yourself?
Like I said, everybody's going to heal differently. My concept of healing is talking about it. My concept of healing is understanding what you went through is not your fault. Um, like, to me, what I did is I had to write a letter. I wrote a letter, and explaining how much hate and anger I had. And I wrote it down in a journal and I burned it. Because he's not here anymore. He's dead. And I'm sitting here stuck in this moment of pure hate and anger, but he's already gone. So why am I gonna ruin my life, and be angry and upset when he's already gone, and there's nothing that's going to take that and make that different. So it was me essentially writing a letter and burning it and saying it was all right for me to heal. It was all right for me to move on. And I encourage people to do that. We have another side of the organization, a Sister Check, and we're 700 women globally strong who lean on each other, that have been traumatized, that who are going through divorces, and who's had to deal with stuff like that. So we lean on each other to understand, hey, it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to start healing, and maybe just ask somebody else how they heal and get some ideas, because it's no one person is I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me to explain because I know what healing looks like to me, but it's what does healing look like to you?
Right.
You know what I mean? What
And,
does it look like to you? It's something completely different.
yeah. And so I like that you put that, and just listening, that's what I got from it. So being able to define your own concept of healing. And I like how you wrote the letter of anger, of everything that you were feeling. You wrote it, you threw it in the fire to release it, and then you did a balloon and you wrote, I forgive you, and you released that. And releasing all of that frustration and being able to be human about it, one, and forgive not just him, but to be able to forgive for yourself that you didn't do
Yeah.
anything wrong, that it wasn't your fault, and then just to acknowledge that forgiveness and to be able to move on. That's just beautiful. Like that's the toolkit to put in, to put in your back pocket. I really like that. I hadn't even thought about that. I had a very close friend who was raped um, repeatedly by the same person, and she just dealt with it in a very harsh way to like where um, she couldn't get it out. She was just in a dark space. She thought it was her fault, and so she had these destructive behaviors in how she dealt with it. And it wasn't until you know he died that she was kind of able to come to grips and come to terms with it. And karma is a bitch, because he really died in a bad way. And so
Yeah.
for her, that helped her start her healing process. But because of those destructive behaviors, she then had other stuff to deal with on top of that.
Right.
And so I'm glad that you mentioned being able to um, define your concept of healing and actually put action to it, right? Your the,
Right.
the release of your angers and frustrations, writing a letter and throwing it in the fire, the act of forgiveness by the balloon and releasing it into the sky. Like those are things that really help the body process. And so like I appreciate you for sharing that. The other part that I wanted to ask you about is around the support. So, what can a person do to help someone who is dealing with complicated grief and PTSD?
I think a lot of times where we fail as individuals is we forget to listen. We forget to listen and we forget to pull our egos and our point of views out of a situation. And what I mean by that is we have to be willing to listen and to understand and know that in this moment that you may not be able to fix it. You may not be able to heal this individual, but let this individual speak. Because I can ask you a bunch of questions, and if I'm going to keep interrupting you or keep projecting, well, I went through this, well, I went through that, you go through that comparison stage, and what good is it going to be for that individual to open up? What good if you're going to do comparison or not take your ego out of it or not understand and sit and listen? At what point is somebody going to come up to you and be like, hey, I got to get this off my chest? Nobody in their right mind is going to heal. So we have to lead with the understanding that you may not be able to fix this, but I'm going to sit and I'm going to listen and I'm going to try to understand. And if I don't understand them, I'm going to find a way to understand. And I think that's where a lot of us are missing the importance of having people come out of the woodwork and actually talk about their pain and their healing and what that looks like. Because we have a lot of people suffering behind closed doors right now and being stuck in this moment of COVID crisis. We are in for a tidal wave of a mental health crisis and we don't see it coming. And I think that's the saddest part, is that we have so many people that are suffering right now that they have to come out and they have to start talking and they have to start addressing, because if not, it's going to eat you up inside. And that's what I strive for, and that's what I push for, is start giving your voice back. Because just because the actions of somebody else and they hurt you is not any way to reflect on who you are as an individual. It is this is their monster, this is their demon, and what they did to somebody else is absolutely horrible and disgusting. But at the same time, you sitting in that dark moment of not understanding and how to heal and move forward. Just go to somebody that you trust and you love and just say, hey, I need to speak. I need to talk. Because if not, then you're going to keep suffering in silence. I suffered in silence for 15 years. 15 years. The only people that were very, very close to me knew what I was going through. And you just put a smile on your face and you keep going, you keep moving forward, because you don't want others, you don't want to be that person that you don't want to be looked at as a victim, because I am not a victim. I am not a victim of my circumstances. I am a warrior of what happened to me. So we have to take that word and think that that word victim is a label that is not accurate, because you are not a victim. If you are coming forward and speaking and healing, you are a warrior of your circumstances. And that's what I try to remind people. The moment you open your mouth and the moment that you start speaking on the demons that you're fighting is the minute you start healing. That is you saying, I'm ready to start healing, and however that looks, I'm ready for that fight. So we just have to sit there and we have to listen and we have to understand.
Indeed. And
Yeah.
I felt that in my soul.
I love it. I love it.
I
I
did. I
love it.
felt that in my soul. I did, and I appreciate you saying that, because, and you said it correctly. You said it beautifully. You know, let your voice be your healing, and to just be able to, acknowledge your hurt, and to go to someone, and for that person that you go to, being open and non-judgmental and allowing that person to speak and get it out, is a very big big part of healing. And you don't even have to do anything, just be there. And so that's beautiful. That's well put. I would What it did make me think about was, most of the time when a person is hurt, it's usually that significant other that hurt them. And so to be able to have a conversation with them on the fact that they hurt you, is that, let's speak on that. I don't know if that's something that is recommended. Is there a way to go about
Well,
doing it? Is that healthy?
well, the reality is that person, that individual that is we'll take this, we'll take my situation, because I speak openly on this. If you're not willing to get the help that you need to make your life better and more understanding, then at some point you have to make that decision and say, is this worth, is this worth me? It's not even like essentially wasting your time, but is it worth me explaining to you over and over again if you're not going to understand where your errors are, and how we can take a tone of voice and turn it into a 3-day fight.
Greg and I wanted to invite you to the community that we created for the whole Guards Down family. Jump on Facebook or check the show notes for the Guards Down Facebook group. There you'll be able to find a community of folks who are committed to raising awareness about complex grief and PTSD. Look forward to chatting with you guys in the group. Now let's get back to the episode.
Voice, and it's how he perceives it and how I perceive it is two different things. So when you're dealing with somebody that has a brain injury or has PTSD, they interpret things differently. You got to remember, like, you remember the commercial growing up with the egg in the frying pan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or
Mm-hmm.
the air in the jar. You got to remember there was a significant disruption when it comes to your cognitive thinking when it comes to PTSD and brain injuries. So what they are interpreting now is their reality. That is their reality. That's not our reality. What you and I have is a probably a similar reality. But you take somebody that's been hurt or has had some kind of severe PTSD or something, and you have a disruption in your cognitive, how I perceive this, how I perceive that. So as far as talking to them, it's hard. It's extremely hard because it goes off from the tone of your voice to the topic of conversation to, is this even worth me talking about, because is it just going to go on deaf ears? But when you add Alzheimer's and dementia into it, now you got yourself a whole different story of you're not going to remember. So this is like a three-edged sword, and it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. I can explain it to you and say, all right, you need to go get help. You need to go talk to somebody so that they can understand what's going on with you, because I can't. Well, if you're not willing to do that, then we're still stuck in the same situation.
Got you. And I'm glad you shared that, because especially when, because that is true. The reality of it is different. When you have a TBI, when you dealing with grief and trauma, your perception of things is a lot different than what the other person is. And so one point that I wanted to point out was, don't wait until you have a disagreement in order to address it.
Right.
Go in with a game plan. And I remember reading this and hearing it, and it made, really good sense, where you go into, and I won't call it an argument or the debate, because when one argues and the other one wins and the other person loses, you both still lose, because, it's a relationship. And so being able to go into a discussion or, a conflicting conversation, go in with a game plan. If there's a safe word to use to say, okay, it's getting to this point, let's tap out and revisit, or, let's talk. And the other part is being receptive to, what they're saying. I remember when I was married and, I was going through my stuff, my PTSD, and my ex-wife, now really good friends. I remember her, like, in the middle of what we were talking about, she was like, "Did you take your meds?" And that
I do that all the fucking time. I do that all the time.
And that just sent me through. And it was like,
That's
so
funny. Yeah, that's the reality, but that's the reality that we live in, right? Because we know that you're supposed to be on this medication, and we know that it's going to level out whatever mood swings you have in that moment. So that's our first instinct, is say, hey, did you take your meds today? Because you're acting kind of bitchy. Like, I'm just saying, like, this is not okay today.
Right.
But yeah, that's our first line of defense. That is literally our first line of defense, is saying, hey, did you take your meds? And it's not that we're doing it to be like really nasty, because the reality is you are going to forget. And it's to the point now where I have to set alarms on all my phones, everything. Like, his phones are all, like, everything is timed, because, well, reality is I'm not in the best shape to remember a lot of things, and progressively get worse. So it's more of just a reminder to say, hey, I'm looking out for your best interest. Did you take your meds today? But totally hilarious. I did that all the time. Oh, that's funny.
And so, I was heated in the moment, but afterwards I appreciated it, and I appreciate her even more, because, like, she stuck through and helped me, through that. And so that was just a relationship that I knew I had to mend and heal, because, well, one, I wanted to, because at one point we were best friends and I loved her. We just got off track with the world, everything else happening around us. And two, I understood the collateral damage of what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't want to pass that off to my kids and my family. So I had to man up. And do that. And I'm glad I did. And so, and I appreciate, you sharing as well.
I want to say kudos to you. Kudos to you for recognizing it before it got too late. And the fact that you guys ended on a amicable, peaceful, and still friend terms, I think speaks volumes. And it speaks volumes to the kind of woman that she is, but also her wanting to be there by your side, to care for you, to make sure that you were all right. But the reality is it, it gets hard. It gets very hard. And I'm at the end, uh, you know, divorce papers were signed. And I speak openly on it because there's so much there's so much that goes into it, and there's 15 years of just constant chaos and abuse, where you're like, all right, at what point am I going to get that break in my life where it says, hey, if you're not going to help yourself, I can't help you anymore. And it took a doctor telling me about 6 months ago, Tanya, if you do not change how you handle stress and how you are dealing with this situation, with you having MS and dealing with him, you will be dead in a year. And that was like my reality. That was my wake up call. Like, I have to move forward, and keep fighting and keep being his voice. But at the same time, I can't sit there and watch you self-destruct anymore, because I love you enough to say, hey, I'm still going to watch over you. I'm still going to take care of you. I'm going to still make sure that you're all right the rest of your life. But I have to love you from a distance, because I can't do it. I cannot do it. And there's a divide right now, and it's okay, because it's going to take some time, because there's 15 years of hate and arguments and like some very, very horrible things, and now is where you have to start healing on that end. Do I regret anything? No, I don't regret anything. I don't regret what I had to go through to get to where I am, because at least now I can be the voice to somebody that's starting off, that has no idea what to do, what to look for. And I don't know. I give you mad respect, because a lot of people don't come forward, and they ruin a lot of things, and they don't realize it. They take it for granted. They take it for granted that their wife or their family is going to stay there, and you're going to allow that to keep being the punching bag, and that's not fair. That's not fair. And I just, a lot of respect to you, for manning up and say, hey, I can't do this anymore. I got to get help.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
I appreciate that, and I wish I would have recognized it sooner. It might have saved my marriage, but at least recognizing it at some point, it still makes the difference, for today. And
Right.
I think my kids see it, and I know she sees it as well. And we're much better for it,
Yeah.
all around. Divorces, they may say, there's no such thing as a happy divorce.
Yeah, because you would begin one if you were happy, right? Yeah, I got it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, to be able to just manage that situation, because I mean, once you go through a divorce, it's tough on you mentally, emotionally, even financially.
Yeah.
And it takes some time to rebound and recover from it. And so,
It's hard.
yeah.
This is a hard transition. And not at 35. I think I was going to be, closing that one book and starting over again. I held sacred till death do us part, but the reality is I'm departing for death pretty fast if I stay in this situation. So you have to understand that, and a lot of these men and women that don't come forward that gets help, they don't understand the amount of frustration and sadness and grief that the family goes through, because they don't know how to help you. They don't know how to take away your demons. They don't know how to erase what you saw. And the reality is we'll never ever be able to do that, but we can be there in that moment and help you. You just have to be willing to say, all right, I need that help. So the more we get people to come out and say, I need help, the better we are equipped to say, all right, I'm here, I'm ready to listen, let's do this. And that's one thing that organization does, is we have a a mental health care plan. And I recommend everybody taking it. It's free to use. It's 36 pages. But what it is you create your care plan and how you see yourself healing. You write down your triggers. You write down how to avoid your triggers and how you want to discuss this with the family. And then there's a family approach section. And on the family approach section is where the family actually gets to sit down and say, this is what you're doing to my life. This is what projecting crap, like I'm just what crap you are projecting on me. Like this is time for the family to sit down and say, all right, let's have this discussion. Let's start fixing this as a whole instead of as an individual. Let him go into the VA and going to see his doctors, and the family's not supported in it. I was his voice. I was his advocate. I was everything for 15 years. And what it was is literally I was at every appointment, and I'm going to make sure that he's getting the care he needs, because this was not his fault, and he's not going to tell you everything that's wrong with him. So instead, you bring this paper, you bring this care plan, and you bring it to your doctor and say, this is how I want to heal. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm going through. Because doctors get X amount of time. You get 15 minutes. You can't possibly explain in 15 minutes everything that's wrong with you. And we're talking multiple appointments after appointments, and you're already 6 to 12 months out on a delay because of COVID and everything. So what better way than start healing at home? Right? You start educating yourself at home, and you start fixing home. And that's what I stress the most, is it has to start at home. And if it doesn't, then how do you expect to heal as a team? There's a reason why the divorce rate in the military is astronomically high, is because you guys don't understand. Like you can't explain everything that you're going through because you've never felt this before. You've never had the opportunity to experience this and know how to heal from it. So when you get brought back into a chaotic situation of a family dynamic who has no idea what you're going through, has never been able to talk to you about what you do, about things you've seen, because a lot of it's confidential and classified, how are you supposed to heal? How's your family supposed to heal? So this is what the care plan is. The care plan automatically becomes your guide on how you feel you want to handle your triggers, your PTSD, your mental health, and get the family involved and start talking about it.
Yeah. Okay. And I like that, having a care plan, because you're absolutely right. The doctor visits, they're 3 to 6 months, even 9 months to a year out, and some people are struggling just to get in. And then you only have this very small window to tell them everything about your life, for them to treat you, diagnose you, and then give you a prescription for it, and pray that it works. So being able to have something like that is definitely helpful. So we got to make sure we get that out, and in our show notes and everything, that'll be one of the things that we'll list. And so if you send me that document or the link to it, I will make sure it get posted so that for the ones that are out there listening, they can check it out. And
yeah, absolutely. I want people to take this as an opportunity to you're stuck in a situation, you're at home with all your loved ones, so take the opportunity to find out what it is exactly, how you can heal together. And ultimately our end result is getting these facilities up and running. I would like to see them break ground within the next year, and start really pushing for our veteran crisis centers, where we strictly focus on PTSD and brain injuries, and what it looks like healing as a family and not just the individual. So a lot of good things coming, a lot of good things, and I'm happy to walk this journey.
Indeed. Well, that brings us to the point. What's been the toughest part of your journey?
Toughest part is opening up. The toughest part for me was, like I said, I didn't heal. I didn't heal from childhood trauma. So when it got brought up into a conversation, I had to deal with it head on. And I had to be like, oh my gosh, like there's some issues here, there's some trauma here. And it's telling your story. It's telling your story over and over again. Because I do have moments where I am triggered and I am angry after I get done with like a show or something. I do get angry. I get sad. And it's not in a woe is me type of situation. It's because there's women and men out there suffering, and they feel like they don't have a voice to come forward and stop such heinous, disgusting filth. They feel like they have to keep to themselves because either if it's happening in the military, which speaking of the military, with all the stuff that's going on with, sexual assault being up 38%, and the military, like these women and men put on the uniform and signed over their life, not to be molested and raped and murdered, from their own brothers and sisters. And I think that's where a lot of our focus is we need to start having these women. The first woman I ever met, and it was at a Operation Stand Down, and it was last year. She came in and she was just up there talking to me and a gentleman named Mike Wilson, and she came up to us and you could see the cut marks on her arms. And it's like, I'm trained to see this. I'm trained to look. So I pull her off to the side and I gave her my business card and I was like, is everything all right? And she said that she was raped. And that was her coping. That was her she has severe PTSD and they're fighting her. And to me, I think that is the ultimate betrayal, that these women have to keep reliving the trauma over and over again and be battered by, I know there's due diligence and they have to do their job and they have to get to the bottom of an investigation. But when you are reliving the trauma over and over again, it gets to be so, so hard on an individual that has gone through it.
Yeah. So when you talk about the trauma, well, the next topic is around how do you make amends? And so the first part of it is, just identify or, knowing that hurt people hurt people. And so for that person that have hurt someone, how should they make amends? And then also from the standpoint of from someone that's been hurt by a person.
To teach his own on that one, whether we choose as human beings to forgive somebody and move on, because it's not worth your time to sit there and be like, well, that's just that individual, and they have no empathetic compass in their body. Like some people are not worth forgiving because they know it will never be genuine, it will never be accepted. So I don't go in and anticipate an apology from anybody. If I do wrong, I will absolutely apologize, because that's how I was raised. You own up to your mistakes and you move on. But I don't go out and anticipate anyone apologizing for the damage that they've done, because then I don't know, it just, to me, it takes away from who I am and how I had to build and keep strong to go through it. I have to learn to forgive and forget, but that's my biblical principles. That's me going, through my Bible. You turn the other cheek, you move forward, because ultimately karma will come and get you, and it will smack you very hard. And I've lived to watch a lot of people that have done evil. I've got to watch a lot of them come back and literally fall in front of me. So I let it go, because and the hardest thing is the family. The family is the one that hurts you the most.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to forgive.
And I just want to make sure that we clarify. This is from the childhood molestation.
Oh yeah, this is through, yeah,
The point that I want to make sure that we touch is there are some soldiers that have made accidents or mistakes on missions and got innocent people killed, and they feel real guilty for it, and they hold on to that guilt and they let it.
that's that survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
That's that that's that survivor's guilt. That's that the what ifs, and that's what I try to tell everybody is never ever ever say what if, because if it was a what if, you literally would have changed something in that situation. And you can't live your life on what if. I can't change it. I can't change what I just did 10 minutes ago. I can't change the beginning of this conversation. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So if you sit there and you focus on the what ifs and hey, I should have done this, I should have done that, the what ifs and the should haves are the ones that are keeping people stuck in their place. So until you move past that and say, you know what, I own it, I made a mistake, I have to move forward with my life. If not, it's literally going to eat me alive. And if people make mistakes, that's a life.
Yeah.
People people need to understand that we are all human, and we at some point are going to make that critical judgment call, and it could either go one or two ways. And the reality is you have to be willing to live with the consequences of your actions. So I don't know, like we just focus too much on the what ifs and what should have been, instead of focusing on, all right, what can I do to, if they accidentally took somebody's life, what can I do to live out that legacy of that person, to make sure that it never happens again? What can I do to move forward and have a conversation with somebody and be like, this is what healing looks like on the other side of a bad judgment call. I own up to my mistakes. This is what I am as an individual, but that's not who I am as a human. Like I love, I hurt, I cry, I have pain, and I think we're losing that mentality right now. We are losing that. People make mistakes in life. And they have to deal with the repercussions of it, but that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Overall, yeah, you still bleed, you still cry, you still hurt. You just, it's how you feel, and ultimately I believe it's like a moral thing. If I feel like I didn't do something wrong and I justified why I did it, well, that kind of makes you a shitty person. Like you're trying to justify why you did something bad. So like it's kind of like how that individual is as a person, and if they feel that they didn't do anything wrong. But it's that remorse, that survivor's guilt right there. That's huge, first and foremost, because you guys are just doing what you're told. You guys are being told to do this. This is the mark. This is what you have to do, and it's fight or flight. Like, but we also have to realize that in that moment, that if you did everything that you were supposed to do, you have to also forgive yourself. And I think that's where a lot of you men and a lot of women are missing the forgiveness of self, because you knew what you were going into, and the hopes and prayers that you wouldn't ever have to take a life, but unfortunately you had to. And that does not make you a bad person. That does not make you an evil person. What it makes you is a human being. And what it makes you is somebody that was following orders. And yes, there's always going to be innocent casualties of war. And we know that happens every day. There's a 7-year-old walking down the sidewalk in Chicago the other day, and she got hit with a stray bullet. Did nothing wrong in her life, nothing wrong. But she was a casualty of whatever war was going on over there. And we have to realize that, people act in the moment. We're acting in the moment of complete anger and BS right now. And we have to take the anger and frustration and remind ourselves that we are human and we all make mistakes. So reverse the foot, reverse the other side and say, hey, if I was in that situation, would I have done absolutely anything completely different? Or would I do the same thing? And it's ultimately a human being thing. It really is.
Yeah. Well, what's been What's kept you going when you wanted to give up?
Um, what keeps me going is conversations like this. Knowing that there's other fighters out there that are fighting for a specific reason, for a specific end result, and that's to help humanity as a whole to understand um, that with more voices, you become louder and louder. And I think that's what the drive that keeps me going. Um, you have people that are suffering every day.
So
And
how,
if you just have one come forward and say, hey, I'm willing to talk, um, I can lay my head down and say that it was a successful day. See, we're so quick to put a monetary value on what success looks like, but success can be one person reaching out and saying, hey, because of you today, I didn't take my life, or I decided to check myself into rehab, or just having that conversation. Like we forget that not everything is monetary.
mm-hmm.
Like we are still humans. We still need to interact. We still need to have those conversations. So that's what keeps me going.
Gotcha. Okay. And if you had any destructive behaviors, what caused those to change?
Um, it would have to be my twin sister. Um, I have a twin sister, and I watched her overdose on heroin, and then I watched her try to hang herself. And I think in that moment, I tried to understand what pain and what anger absolutely looked like. And I watched it on her face. And I think at that moment, I decided, like, this is not the life I want to live. I'm not going to sit here and be on pills. I'm not going to sit here and wallow in self-pity. I'm not going to do this and that. Because the reality is I'm doing it to myself, and it's not affecting it's not affecting anybody else around me, minus like my outbursts and my chaos. But it's not, I'm doing the damage to myself. So why am I going to sit there and keep doing damage to myself and it not get anywhere?
Yeah.
So it's all about to me. I feel like it has to be like a tragic or traumatic event for somebody to snap out of whatever they're going through. And I hate putting it like that, but it's like it's like that one pivotal moment in your life that you had something happen, like something that transformed your life into saying, no, I want to do better. Like, I have to have a better life than what I have now. And to me, like the individuals that I speak with about this, is they had that traumatic event. They had that brick wall moment where, oh my gosh, it's how am I going to move forward with this? Am I going to keep with the same life I have? And that was my breaking point. So that was 2016. Like, 2016 was a really bad year. My brother, my brother's a firefighter. He was a firefighter, and he has severe PTSD, severe PTSD, to the point where it literally crippled him in fear to drive. We had a young lady go head on with a semi truck out here by where we live, and she was decapitated, and her body was in like 4 different places. And he was responsible for cleaning it up. And being 21 and being a firefighter, you see something like that, you're like, oh my gosh, like, what just happened here? So at 21, you're still vulnerable and impressionable, and they wonder why you have PTSD. Well, guess what? Like, those memories are not going to go away. That trauma is not going to go away. So it's just knowing that, other people are out there struggling, and, he deals with it. My dad's a firefighter. I know my dad has PTSD. He'll never admit it. He will never admit it. But when you can go and say exactly where every suicide was, and you can go back and say where every body removal was, or when you can go back and say, this is the house that started on fire and burned to the ground, and there was a body sitting inside, you have severe PTSD, and you have to be willing to address it and speak on it. And I think that's where I try to push for him to speak on it. But he says he has a good buddy system going on. So I have to trust and believe that he does. But I will never stop having that conversation with him. I will never stop having that conversation with anybody.
Yeah.
about what trauma and PTSD actually look like.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about professional help.
So it's the irony behind this. So we are caught up in a system where we are looking for intervention and instead of prevention. And everyone's like, oh, this is a preventive measure. This is a preventive measure. Go see a therapist, talk about it. But the reality is that is not a preventive measure. That is a um, that is your first point of contact. That is your person that you're spilling everything out to, and that you're being directed into what you what they believe that you are, how you should heal as an individual. And I encourage people to seek out somebody who resonates with them. If there's a trauma therapist that deals with sexual trauma, reach out to that person, because not every doctor or every therapist is going to have that specific quality and empathetic approach, that, you know, somebody that's been trained in something like that. So do your research and look for the professionals that you know, specifically speak to just you as an individual.
And I like that you bring that up because part of this is about cultural sensitive therapy. And I strongly believe that if your clinician, therapist, life coach, if they have a similar background or shared experience, if they look like you, then you two can connect on a much deeper level,
Right.
and the treatment will be more effective.
Yep.
So just wanted to get your thoughts on that aspect of it.
I believe that is 100% accurate, because I can resonate with you. I can resonate with, I can explain and not feel uncomfortable about sexual trauma because you are trained in to understand and what healing looks like as far as, you know, the sexual trauma side, the abusive side, the um, like if you have that care plan, that individual that is vested in your healing, um, and they understand you, of course I'm going to want to heal, of course I'm going to want to go and talk to them, of course. If it and it's all about putting in the effort, and it's all about, um, do I want to heal, do I want to heal with a professional group that has my best interest.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be willing to be committed to it as well. And I think like if they're all vested in the same area of either abuse or sexual trauma, whatever, um, they understand it. They can resonate more. They can talk about it more in depth instead of having some fly on the wall person come in and be like, all right, how you feeling today? I'm not going to connect with you. I'm not going to connect with you, and that doesn't make me a bitch. What that makes me is I feel like there is a cold tension, and you will never understand what I'm going through because then that's me that's me going off your tone and your body language. People read into that stuff,
Yeah.
and when they say they don't, that is such a lie because I read into it all the time. I read into body language. If I feel that you don't have a vested interest and that there's nothing that you can do for me and I'm just a number to you, then I'm not going to engage. I'm going to shut down and I'm going to keep on going until I find somebody that is willing to engage with me. So I think we just need to be more empathetic and more aware of what healing and a care plan looks like to somebody, and just try to resonate with them. I just feel like the system, we just need to do better.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're getting ready to close, and I appreciate you sharing. What advice would you give your younger self?
I, knowing everything that I've gone through, I would just say keep fighting. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't go back and do it over again. Just keep fighting for you, keep fighting for what you believe in, and don't be afraid to speak. Because I think that's where we were misled growing up, as the thought of fear, the shame that went in behind what occurred. I think that's what held us back, because it didn't just happen to me; it happened to all three of my sisters. So I think it held us back from experiencing that childhood, from experiencing anything. But I would just say, just keep fighting. And where you are now, it's worth what you had to go through.
Yeah. So you see your growth?
I do. I do. I do. Yeah, I'm in this moment right now. Um, it's a bittersweet journey, and I'm all right with it. I'm all right with it. I have my moments. Get back to me in a couple of days. I might be pissed off. I don't know.
Understood. Well, look, tell us, how can we reach you? How can we find your organization?
So it is www.togetherforthegood.org. And we are nationwide. We do, we are veteran certified. So we've done all the training, the culture. I've lived it, breathed it. And I think that's what is one thing that sets us out, sets us apart, is that we're willing to keep educating, and we're willing to keep learning to understand. So I always encourage people to reach out on the website, or yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me, because I tell you, my phone rings too much, so I'm not gonna give my phone number out.
Indeed.
Yeah, but all the contact information is on the website. So they can always, yeah. And then you just pick what services that you're looking for. And I try to get back within 24, 48 hours, but do not get a hold of me on LinkedIn. I tell everybody this because the inbox is so full of people that I have to catch up with that your message is bound to get lost. So never ever inbox me and say, hey, by the way, let's set up a call, because hey, I'm not gonna get it. I'm not. They get pushed down. It's ridiculous. I wish there was a better system, but there's not. But yeah, just reach out on the website.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you being on here, and thank you so much for sharing and talking to me and helping me put some tools in my tool bag. And I'm sure there's other people out there that got a lot of good information from this. Any last words of encouragement or words of wisdom you would like to share before we sign out?
Just start raising your voice. You have a voice. Just start speaking, and start healing. That's all I ask. I ask to start having those uncomfortable conversations. I ask, and I encourage it, because we're not going to be able to heal, and we can't heal if we don't start having the conversations. So all I ask, people start having the conversations.
Indeed. Well, all right, everyone. You heard it from Tanya. This is Greg and Tanya with Guards Down, telling everyone to stay safe, stay focused, and stay engaged. We're out.